So the next thing we're going to look at is conflict resolution through drama. And really the reason why we picked this last is because it kind of encompasses all that we've talked about in these other segments. It's about building an ensemble, creating a safe space for people to take creative risks, and using the rules of improv and yes and to continue a scene and build upon a scene, and not to say no in a scene and shut it down. All those things are part and parcel with conflict in everyday life. When you shut down, you'll never solve a conflict. When you open up and are willing to discuss and communicate with someone, the conflicts, maybe they're not resolved immediately, but you're certainly dealing with them in a more mature or helpful way, and you're given tools that you can then translate into real life and not just in drama. So one of the exercises, it's kind of a good icebreaker to do with your students. I call it the Symphony of Love and the Symphony of Complaints. You can do various, like anything we do here, for various ages. It can be for various ages. It can be adapted to anything you want. So for this first one, I need a conductor and then 2 instruments. Aha! Oh, it looks like we already are in this. All right. So you're going to be the conductor. You are the 2 instruments. So so what does a conductor do, Danielle?
Conductor leads the symphony.
He leads the symphony. Okay. So he, with his physicality, he shows them how to perform, how to play their instruments, as it were. So can you give them your conductor signals? How would you want them to talk loudly? Okay. What about softly? Okay. What about quickly? What about slowly? Very good. How about stop? Okay. All right. So you guys got that down? Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you each I'll give you the same subject. So let's just start with something simple. Let's just start with pizza. Why not? The subject of pizza. And can you guys riff, like monologue and riff? It's really just about speaking, getting thoughts out, stream of consciousness. So just riff on why, how you love pizza, anything associated with pizza that's all positive energy. And you're going to follow Danielle's directives, and then we will go from there.
I love pizza. I really like cheese. I really like white pizza. I'm not like the biggest fan of sauce. I really hate sweet sauce. But like I like garlicky sauce, but I really prefer to have the white pizza. But I like to have broccoli and garlic on pizza. But I also really like onions.
I love meat lovers pizza. I love when you have all the different meats on the pizza.
I don't like different types of cheese. Pineapple. Why do people like pineapple on pizza? I really get annoyed when people like to put pineapple on pizza and then they make me feel guilty. They make me feel guilty because I don't like pineapple. I don't really like fruit. So why would I put fruit on pizza?
Chicken
pizza is for vegetables. It is for meat.
Very good. Wow, that was full. That was robust. Okay, so let's dive into how that can specifically relate to conflict resolution. So I'm going to give you guys a different topic, and this is going to be more of a symphony of complaints. That one kind of veered on a little bit, so you started riffing on, but that's okay. That's okay because you just get your thoughts out. You get your thoughts out, and then you can analyze that at a later time. So, can you guys do a symphony of complaints about without getting too specific or too inappropriate, like someone that annoys you, or your pet peeves in life, like what people do, like driving a car, like how people on the road. All right, conductor, whenever you're ready.
So I hate when I'm driving on the highway and somebody just won't go faster, and I'm like,
it's called a turning signal. People need to use a turning signal. And in my opinion, I should be in charge of all DMVs because I should be giving.
If you want to go slower, you should probably be in a different lane instead of in the left lane.
I'm driving, but like honestly, just use a turning signal. It's not like turning signal. You just go up. You just go down. And it's just consider it to your other drivers.
Good. Okay. Great, so you got the complaining down. But just as an example, what I usually do when I teach a PD about this, I'll usually have the teachers kind of riff like you were. Someone maybe you're allowed to do this here. do pet peeves about your students, and then we're going to go back and say what you love about your students, because all of it is valid. Because not every day that you're teaching is going to be an easy day, and sometimes they're not listening to you, or they're not in the mood. Vice versa, maybe the students can have a bad day too. That kind of open communication is what this is all about. So let's do a symphony of complaints about your students or teaching or that sort of thing.
I don't know why no one listens to me. I am supposed to be
supposed to
teaching.
respect your
I
fellow
wish they would
students.
listen to me
You're
and
supposed
not
to work
talk
with
over me. Just raise your hand. Just raise your hand.
Raise
It's
your
not
hand. I agree.
difficult.
Just
Please
try to raise your hand.
and I will answer. I will get to everyone. I promise I will get to everyone.
You
But we
have
cannot
to listen to
talk over
everyone. You have to respect
Just
each
listen
other.
to me.
And
I
you
am
have
here
to
because I want to be
you have to
here.
work
And you
together.
are here.
You have to work.
Awesome. Now, guess what? Now you're going to do a symphony of love about your students.
My students are the most creative people you will ever meet. Like, all they do is have a
They
million
are so
ideas,
excited
and
when
they
they
want to
walk
tell
in.
you everything
Everyone
about
is
you.
so
They know
excited to be
everything.
here whenever they
want
walk
to
in.
be here.
They just ask me
They'll
all
give
these
you
questions, and I
the
just want to answer all
details
the questions
on
so fast because they're
different
so
words and
great,
facts
they're
and
so
vocabulary.
weird.
They know
And
everything.
they just love
They
theater,
memorize all
and
the
I love
lines,
that they
they
love
love to
theater
sing.
because I
Wonderful. Okay, let's analyze real quick. So, what was it like doing that thing for the people riffing, for the instruments in this symphony? What was it like to talk at the same time and just do that stream of consciousness? How did you feel?
It was interesting because I was like trying not to pay attention to her, but then sometimes she would say something that I was like, yeah, that's
That's true.
really how it is.
I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you were picking up on each other's points, even if you're trying to make your
Yeah.
own. You were taking in and accepting their points
Yeah.
and allowing it to build. Even if you were kind of talking out, there was kind of this osmotic dialogue thing going on. And what was it like to direct them, conduct them?
Part of me made me think about when we side out on sound during our warm-ups. Sometimes you just need a release of tension. And I felt like in conducting them, I was able to give that to them, such as building it up by going faster
Yes.
and then cutting it off.
Yeah.
Right.
Or letting them talk louder, but then, okay, let's bring it back down.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That kind of, and what I think is interesting when you have students watch this, what I have noticed to happen, they complain sometimes. They're like, I can't understand what they're saying. They might pick up on some things, but usually the first time they're doing it, even if they're acting, they're like, I don't understand this. I don't know why, we're speaking over each other. How is that helpful? And then you go, well, especially if they are a rambunctious group, well, that's not helpful. You can see that it's not always the clearest way to get your point out, talking at the same time. That sometimes it's very easy to have a back and forth as opposed to a information dump kind of a thing.
And
So,
I think on the flip side, it's also helpful that if they're afraid to talk about these things with each other, doing this first might help because they've already said it. They've already said everything they need to say. Now let's have a conversation about it.
Oh yeah, and what I've also found with students is that they, at least with high school students, when I did this with high school students, they love the complaining portion, and then the love one is tougher. But if you just keep it going, they will eventually kind of be forced to, because when you're speaking on, they run out of subjects to complain, but then when they're talking about subjects that they love about each other, because they're thinking on the spot and forced to just speak and not pre-plan, some more truth comes out that way. That's actually more interesting and sometimes even moving. But on that note, let's move on to our next improv exercise. Our next improv exercise with conflict resolution through drama is a two-person freeze scene with a third person coming in. So basically how this works, it builds upon the other improv scenes that we have discussed earlier in our other segments. So they're going to start, we'll ask the audience for a location, relationship, but this one we're going to add a conflict. So right now, what we'll do is, I'll be the audience right now because I have some ideas for where this can go. So you guys, without resorting too strongly to stereotypes, but a little bit is allowed. It's okay. You are two high school age girls fighting over texts that the other had sent to the other the night before. You guys can flesh out what that means, and you're in conflict. And then after that develops and it kind of reaches a point where maybe they can't go any further, Danielle will call freeze, and she's going to come in and try to, in a truthful, as realistic as possible way, try to resolve or mediate that conflict. So let's give it a shot.
So in a larger group, would a person be appointed to resolve the conflict, or is it just calling out freeze whenever a student is inspired to?
It depends on the class. If you have a group that really benefits from a little bit more structure, I would assign the person at the beginning. But if it's a more open group that's in a collaborative mood that day, you teach, you can, you know what I'm talking about. You can just have them, raise their hand and jump in. There's a few options that you can do. The point is, this is the main exercise. That is a wonderful question, Danielle. Any other questions for anybody? Good. Let's give it a shot.
Did you mean to send that to me? I can't believe you said you didn't like my skirt. What was that about? When I bought it, you liked it.
I liked it then, but sometimes I change my mind, and you just can't be mad at me for that because I changed my mind, and that's not my fault.
Well, I don't think it's very nice because I spent a lot of money on that skirt, and I was gonna wear it to homecoming.
Well, you can't wear that skirt to homecoming because I'm wearing that same skirt to homecoming. So if you wear that same skirt to homecoming, then we'll both be wearing the same skirt to homecoming, and we cannot wear the same skirt to homecoming.
Well, if you're gonna wear the skirt, why would you say it's ugly?
Because I don't want you to wear it. It looks good on me.
Freeze.
Marissa, I think you need to apologize to Sarah for what you said, and we can both wear the skirt and then wear something different on top, and it will show our friendship but also allow us to be more creative.
I'm sorry that I said the skirt looked ugly. I was just jealous because I wanted to wear the skirt.
Well, what color would you like to wear on top?
Pink.
And I'll wear blue.
Okay, fine.
Great. Okay, that's one example of the scene. So because you guys are wonderful professional actors that have improv training, you agreed right away, which is great. But that doesn't always happen necessarily in the classroom. So just for maybe our own entertainment, but really for our own exploration, can you guys make it harder? Like I'm going to give you a new scene, a new scenario. You're allowed to make it harder for the person to come in.
Okay, cool.
Do you guys want to swap out? Does someone else want to
No,
be
that
with
was
two
such
people?
a good resolution.
Yeah, I think she's
No,
really good at
she's
resolutions.
ready. Okay, well then, all right, we'll keep that. Okay, so can you guys be? Does anyone have a good conflict? Any suggestions? All right, well let's just start with location. How about let's just start with that location suggestion.
Lunchroom.
Lunchroom. Okay, you're in the lunchroom.
Someone got a better grade than the other in math.
Sure, that's wonderful. Okay, so let's see that scene. Let it develop. Danielle's going to come in.
Just because AP Calc is really difficult doesn't mean you should be mad that I am smarter than you in AP Calc. Like, I was always in the honors program. You just got better in the honors program. It's not your fault.
What did you get on the test?
I got a 98.
You got a 98?
I got a 9. I'm really good at math.
You didn't even study for that test.
That's not my fault. Some people are just smarter than other people. I just happen to be really good at math.
You think you're smarter than me just because you got a better grade?
I
Do
mean,
you know how hard I work on it? I study for like 5 hours a night.
it doesn't matter if you study hard. Some people are just better at like math or school.
Why are you being mean? Like, what does that even matter?
I'm just like saying that you can't be mad at me. This is not my fault.
This is how I'm feeling.
Oh, what do you
I'm
mean?
allowed to feel how I don't
I don't care. No,
Please.
you're not allowed to.
So everyone has different strengths, and we can't always be the best at everything. You might
But I'm the
have
best.
another strength that Larissa doesn't have. And
Yeah, you
Larissa,
should tell her. I'm
since you
smarter.
are-
I'm smarter. See, I'm
Larissa,
smarter.
since you have a strength in math,
I have a lot of
perhaps
strengths.
you can help Sarah in math, and Sarah.
No, she's complaining.
can
She's complaining.
confirm
She's not going to
your
listen to me.
strengths.
She's not going to listen to this resolution. She doesn't care. She doesn't care.
Well, I studied for 5 hours. Maybe if you have something better that I can do in those 5 hours, maybe it
So
would
Larissa,
help
maybe
me
you
out.
have better study techniques that you can show her.
Okay, freeze. All right. So Danielle, that was wonderful mediating, and you guys did exactly what I instructed you to do. And you might even want to instruct this to your students, just to prove to them, because really, when you're in a larger classroom setting, you're going to have, I would hope, a sizable, or at least a few other people in the audience, so to speak, looking at this. So it might be helpful for them to maybe see how they act. They can see some truth in how they can potentially act, and then they can analyze it. They can say, well, what did you guys think if you were watching this? you'd be like, well, how could that potentially be resolved, even if the mediator didn't succeed?
I think it depends on the person too, because someone like you said earlier,
Right.
like we just said okay. Someone might not, even in this situation, someone might not say okay, and you can form a conversation with them and say, well, why wouldn't you say okay?
Right.
What would a
Right.
fix be for you? What would the resolution be for you?
Right.
And you can find out different answers for different people.
Exactly. Okay. Good point. What I would like to just try once more, but I would like to get rid of actual words. I want it to all be in gibberish. All right. So that way you can rely more on gesture and intention and less on the content of what you're saying.
Okay.
And we'll explain, how that feels and maybe how that can work afterwards. Do you guys want to pick a new one, or we can stick with the same one that we were doing because we kind of worked on that?
Okay.
What do you guys think? Yeah, it's the grades, but it's all gibberish.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Good. Okay. So, how did that feel? Was it just too weird? Was anything? How did you feel about doing it all in gibberish?
I think it was easier to do because we had done the scene already.
Yeah.
So I wonder what it
So
would be
like
like.
new. If like
Right.
it was a new scene, I think we would have been very frustrated because we can't articulate what
Our
we're trying.
point,
Yeah, we
yeah.
can't articulate our point.
Sure. Well, how about before we go into that, let's do a new scene, and I'm going to give you a new thing real quick. Okay. This is going to be all in gibberish. I want you to. So both of you like this boy, and I don't know.
Okay.
And he
Sure.
probably has flirted with both of you or
Great.
something, or expressed interest in both of you. And how would that work? Great. Okay.
So that felt pretty silly, but I think that especially if you are dealing with a real conflict that is happening in the group, then the silliness might help relieve some of the tension.
Exactly. That's kind of the point, because I don't think necessarily anyone who's maybe specifically going in towards an improv exercise based on conflict resolution, students might insist, oh, I don't have a conflict, everything's fine. What? I don't need to do this. It's too heavy.
Yeah.
I think you need to periodically make it light and
Yeah.
silly to maybe highlight the absurdity of some conflicts, but also just make sure everyone's engaged, because if they're more entertained, they're more engaged, they're more open.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what the point of all of this is. So really, when you're teaching your students, when you're teaching conflict resolution, you can use any of the exercise we used in other segments. You can use a tableau to tell a story about conflict and how conflicts develop. You could do a myriad number of exercises. These are just two of the more specific ones that you can use for conflict resolution. So ultimately, what I would keep in mind is to constantly adapt, listen to your students, and discuss how they're feeling with each exercise, because it's going to inform the next step. Because they're going to say something in a discussion, it's happened almost always, or they will say something in a discussion, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a great idea for an exercise based on these patterns, and then it yields to this next wonderful thing when we discover, and everyone's much more creative and open. So that is conflict resolution through drama.